Okay, so today is our second verse that we are going to study. There's 6 verses that I have selected for you. As we discussed last time, we know that Dhammapada is a collection of gathas. In other words, actually poetic utterances in Pali language given by the Buddha. So most of the time, those utterances are actually sometimes summaries of what Buddha has, said in sermons, in discourses. So therefore, these gathas are almost like a very concise way of presenting the teachings of the Buddha. It is like a pithy instructions. So today we have a very beautiful gatha. I'm going to show you that first, and then from there we will discuss. So, sister, I may need permission to share the screen. So I think you should have received the list of gathas that we are studying. So you can turn to, yeah, I think I can share. It's in the second gatha that we are going to study. Thank you, sister. Now I can share. Okay, so this is the gatha that we are going to study today. So it may sound very strange to you because this is in Pali language, but I'm going to chant that for you, and then later we can go through the meaning. Okay, let me chant that for you in Pali. Nidhinaṃ'va pavattāraṃ yang passe vajjadassinaṃ Niggayhavādiṃ medhāviṃ Tādisaṃ paṇḍitaṃ bhaje Tādisaṃ bhajamānassa seyyo hoti pāpiyo. This is verse number 76 in the Dhammapada on the chapter on vice. So, rough meaning is given here. When should one find a person who points out faults and who reproves, one should follow such a wise and sagacious person as one would follow a guide to some hidden treasure. To one who follows such a wise person, it will be an advantage, not a disadvantage. So what Buddha is saying here is actually, if you have a wise person as a teacher, as a friend, as a guide in your life, and that person is pointing out your faults and reproves you of your weaknesses, of your misbehavior, and you receive this this pointing out of your faults, and then maybe some admonitions from that person. Usually, we find that such persons may be, difficult to be with, or we may not enjoy the company of someone who will always point out our faults or reproves us of our misbehavior. But what the Buddha is saying here is actually, if you have such a teacher or a good friend, you should actually follow such a wise and sagacious person. Just like, when someone points out a fault in us, when someone, reproves us from some misbehavior, treat that moment almost like showing us a hidden treasure. For such a person who will always take others, maybe advices or maybe even pointing out our weaknesses, if we take such pointing out, such admonitions as as valuable. And for such a person, there will always be an advantage or progress, and that will not be a disadvantage. So this is the meaning of the simple meaning of the verse. So it looks like it's going against our normal way of, thinking. It's like encouraging us to think slightly differently and challenging us to accept maybe criticism, not really harsh criticism, unkind criticism, but accept some constructive criticism, accept others' advice, although it is hurtful, advices as valuable guidance to us. So why here, I really like to see why Buddha say that someone pointing us our weakness is similar to pointing out a treasure in us, like a hidden treasure. Okay, so before that, let me go to a few important Pali words that I would like you to just familiar with. Maybe if you are interested in learning Pali, or maybe I would like to every day teach you a few Pali terms. So the few important Pali terms used in this verse, one is called Nidhi. Nidhi is the term for treasure. Anything that's like a hidden, important, valuable, precious things. Nidhi. Nidhi is a treasure. And then vajja. Vajja is for fault. So here we talk about pointing out faults. So vajja is fault. Vajja, that is how you pronounce it, vajja. And the third one is medhāviṃ. Medhāviṃ, sagacious person. The term medha or medha is used for wisdom, medha. And medhāviṃ is one who has wisdom. So medhāviṃ is the term for sagacious person, medhāviṃ. If someone who would like to have a Buddhist name, this will be a nice Buddhist name, medhāviṃ. If someone is interested in having a Buddhist name, medhāviṃ. Maybe a little bit more like a female name, or medhāviṃ. And then the next one is paṇḍita. Paṇḍita is a Pali term for knowledgeable person. You may this is a term that you may have already been familiar with. Like we have an English term called pandit. You may have seen that, right? Pandit. So that pandit means like expert in certain field. So you can have financial pandits. So term pandit means experts or knowledgeable person. So that's coming from Pali and Sanskrit. So paṇḍita is the original term for knowledgeable person. So what Buddha is asking us to follow such a sagacious and knowledgeable person, but don't always follow a person that you always appreciate, you always approve you. Actually, follow a person who will always, pointing out your weaknesses. Okay, let's go to understand quite deeper meaning of this verse. Why Buddha said that it is almost like showing a hidden treasure when someone points out our fault? It is not easy to find out our own weaknesses, because most of the time our attention are not towards ourselves. Our attention is outward, so we don't really see our behavior. We don't really see our facial expressions. We don't really see our own conduct. So only others can see it, and mainly we have a kind of resistance to accept our own faults. It is easy for us to discern and discern others' faults, but it's very, very difficult to recognize our own. And so there's another important Dhammapada verse. I will quickly read that. This is Dhammapada verse 252. There Buddha said, it is easy to see faults of others, but difficult to see one's own faults. One shows the faults of others like a chaff winnowed in the wind, but on conceals one's own as a cunning gambler conceals his dice. So Buddha is giving two examples here. Like it's very easy for us to see the faults of others, but very difficult to see one's own. That is why we need someone to help us to recognize our weaknesses, because it's not something we can see by ourselves. Very difficult. Yeah, and so two similes are given here that when the others' faults are like obvious outside, like a chaff we know in the wind, it's always out. We can easily see others, but when it comes to ourselves, it is hidden. Like like a cunning gambler conceals his dice. We try to sometimes hide our weaknesses, and of course, but sometimes it is hidden for our own eyes too. It is because we cannot see our own faults that easily. We need someone to help us to understand our weaknesses, understand how I can grow. So usually whenever, and even when someone points out our weaknesses and some mistakes, we have a tendency to reject or to ignore or to justify our behavior. We have all reasons why I did like that, why I have spoken like that. We can give all the reasons and justify our behavior, and that is what we are doing in our normal life. One, it is very difficult for us to identify our own mistakes and our own faults. Very difficult. Even when someone points out our mistakes or behavior, misbehavior or weaknesses, we will not easily accept them. We will justify our behavior, we will reject, and sometimes even we ignore, we don't care. That is how usually we live our life, normally. What Buddha is advising us to do here is understand and be mindful and have this attitude. Actually, if someone is pointing out a mistake, treat it as almost like a hidden treasure, because it's very difficult for us to see our own weaknesses. We all want to grow. We all want to grow and become the best version of ourselves. Of course, in Buddhist understanding, we all want to become Arya Puggala. We call noble person, Arya Puggala. We all want to recognize our own defilements and gradually overcome those defilements to become an Arya Puggala. And that's our goal. We don't want to, be like this all the time, and we really want to grow beyond this. This is not the optimal way of living. This is not the optimal way of being. There's more room for us to progress. That is what the Buddha had shown us, to show the enlightened personality, that we can gradually grow. But in order to grow, we need to understand our own defilements. What kind of defilements are prominent in me? What kind of weaknesses that I have? Which area that I have difficulties? Is it with interpersonal relationship? Is it with handling a stress? Or is it handling a grief? We will all have different patterns of how we mismanage many issues in our life. So maybe we are very good at in dealing with the stress, but we may not very good at dealing with the loss of important thing. Or we may good at communication with others, but we may not good at maybe even like taking care of oneself. So we all have different patterns, different patterns of defilements. So we really need someone with kindness and wisdom to help us to point out these things. So therefore, whenever we receive such maybe criticism or such admonishments, we may not be happy, but Buddha is asking us to change our attitude and use them as treasures. So I would like to point out two defilements that will prevent us from learning and growing. So you need to understand that in order to identify our own defilements, we need some support from teachers, from good friends, but there are two defilements that prevent us from learning and growing. two defilements that prevent us from growing, learning and growing. And in these two defilements will prevent us from learning and growing, and then we will not be able to overcome our defilements. So therefore, we really need to understand this. And one is conceit, pride, and that will, that will not help us whenever we receive advice or instruction from others. It's very difficult for us to accept and be humble, and our conceit, our pride will prevent us from opening our eyes to it, even considering it, or even accepting it. We will always try to defend. That's called conceit. We need to recognize these two things. There's also other defilement. It's called stubbornness, or obstinacy, or arrogance. And the Pali term is Dhammapada. Actually, the Dhammapada is actually like a pillar, a strong pillar that is not flexible at all. Like a strong pillar, sometimes it can be like a strong pillar, not flexible, not listening, not willing to change. Stubbornness, like a pillar. So Dhammapada is like a pillar, and also this defilements. So these are the two defilements that will prevent us from giving our ear to instructions, guidance, and sometimes criticisms. And these two will prevent us from growing. We really need to be very, very mindful whenever these things arise in us. Usually whenever you read a bad comment or bad feedback, or maybe some kind of instruction or admonitions, you will feel these defilements are coming and rising in us, like defending us, not giving all kind of reasons for our behavior. So we need to observe that urge rising of defilements, and observe them and notice them, but not to become the victims of those defilements and tell ourselves, oh, I see that. Okay, I see that conceit is coming. I see that stubbornness is coming. I see that defilements are coming. You observe them and recognize and remember, oh, these things are not helping me to grow. So those two defilements are like a maladaptive strategies to protect the self. And wrongly we try to protect the self. So therefore, we really have to have good understanding of these defilements, and if we have that awareness and mindfulness of these two defilements, then we can actually recognize them and go beyond them and open our ears to the instruction and guidance we receive from others. So either we need a strong skill of mindfulness to notice our own weaknesses or defilements. Definitely we can develop our mindfulness enough that we can recognize when a defilement is arising in us. That should be our goal. But until then, we need a kalyana mitra, a spiritual teacher or a spiritual friend who points out our weaknesses and defilements. So therefore, we should be humble and accept those weaknesses. So acceptance is the beginning of the growth. Okay, so until now, and I think the main meaning of the verse is that. So I'm going to share with you the story behind this gatha. But before that, I would like to take a moment to answer any questions or from you. Is anyone has any query or any questions to ask from the key points that I made here? Okay. You can also ask your question using the chat box. Okay. Otherwise, let's move to the other part. Of course, we can have some discussion later. Are all criticisms helpful? And how we can manage that. Maybe you may have some thoughts in your mind that let's talk on that more detail later. So this interesting verse is given by the Buddha based on an interesting story. And there was the monk at the time of the Buddha. Actually, there was a helper in the Savatthi, in the Buddhist monastery, like a helper, a very old person. He will always help the monks prepare things. He cleaned the monastery, and he came to the monastery in his old age. But he expressed his willingness to become a monk. But many other senior monks didn't want to make him a student because they thought that it's very difficult to train him. He's too old, very difficult to train him. And the other senior monks did not accept him as a disciple to train him. So this old person went to the Buddha. His name was Radha. He went to the Buddha and told the Buddha that I would really like to become a monk. I have been in the monastery for many years now. I really would like to become a monk. But no senior monk is willing to take me as a student, as a disciple. And then on that account, Buddha actually summoned all the monks in the monastery. And there was in that gathering, Buddha asked, this person sitting here, have you ever received any help from this person in your life? Of course, he has been helping so many monks. But in that crowd, there was Venerable Sariputta, the one of the two chief disciples of the Buddha. And so when Venerable Sariputta is there, and Venerable Sariputta told the Buddha, Venerable Sir, I remember this person helped me a lot. I specifically remember one day he offered me rice. He offered me, rice. So I remember his help. Then Buddha asked, if that person has helped you, don't you like to help him in return? He has a desire to become a monk. Why don't you make him your disciple? So Venerable Sariputta accepted to make him, to ordain him and train him. So Venerable Sariputta took this old gentleman as a disciple and trained him and ordained him. And what happened that everybody thought that this older person will not be able to get training. But what happened was that actually Venerable Sariputta has to do a lot of admonishments for this elder person to first of all to behave like a monastic. And Venerable Sariputta will always point out that is not how you do it. That is not how you keep things. That is not how you be respectful. He always giving all this instruction. But all the monks noticed that this older monk is very listening. He is very humble and getting all the instruction. And he never got hurt when those senior monks was giving him instruction. Venerable Sariputta is the main teacher, but there are other monks also helping him and always giving instruction, guidance, and pointing out his mistakes. And then, of course, later he became very good in monastic behavior, and then he started to study and learn and practice meditation under the guidance of Venerable Sariputta. So it was a rough period for this, elder monk, go through all these trainings, and everyone, or the senior monks are giving him a lot of instruction, but he was willing to accept them, very obedient and listening, and never got hurt. All the things that coming, all the instruction or the criticism he took them as very valuable thing. So what happened actually after a few months, and this monk was able to become a really very knowledgeable, advanced practitioner. And within a short period of time, he was able to achieve various success in his meditation. And of course, eventually, he even became enlightened sage, enlightened monk. And after all the monks witnessed the transformation of this elderly person to an elderly monk, to a very disciplined monk, to a very strong, dedicated practitioner, and eventually become an enlightened person. So there was a discussion among the monks about this monk one day. And then on that occasion, Buddha uttered this stanza saying that is how, even we don't have much training in us, even though we are not that knowledgeable, but if we have this one quality, that you will take all the criticism, you will take all these admonishments as treasure, you can grow. And that is the important, quality that you should have. So Buddha, in that instance, your occasion, Buddha uttered this verse. And of course, you may remember that Venerable Rahula, the Prince Siddhartha's son, also had the same quality he was also, accepting and receiving all the instruction. Okay, so that's the story behind this verse. So now I would like to, take a moment to have some discussion about, what you think about this, how if we have a person who is always criticize you, can you take that person as your kalyana mitra? What do you think? Do you have someone who will always, criticize you, or maybe always point out, your weaknesses? Can you consider him a kalyana mitra, or what you a spiritual teacher, a spiritual friend? Can you think that all criticism are hidden treasures, or only some criticisms are hidden treasures? What do you think about that? Anyone would like to comment and share? Think about your own friends. Think about your own teacher. Maybe let me share my, my experience. Of course, we can have a discussion. I mean, because some people may be always critical, always negative, always nagging, always complaining, always, giving, maybe, bad comments, So what Buddha used here, very important two term, the two term I taught you in Pali, like sagacious and then knowledgeable, right? So the person has to be maybe a little bit knowledgeable and wise. So it's not all the criticism we get from others, but actually maybe a knowledgeable person and also reasonable criticism. Let me share, there was a very embarrassing experience that I had. It happened many, many years ago, so I can actually share with you now. So this happened, when I was still a student monk in Sri Lanka. I was in the university, and then somehow I got an invitation to give a short sermon in radio. So it was a very good opportunity for me. So I went to the national radio and the studio, and they were ready to record me. They actually started recording me. So they gave me, and so I was speaking on a topic in giving a sermon. So they will record it, and later they will broadcast it. So for me, that's the first time that I'm in this radio station, in this studio. So they started record my sermon. I prepared myself very well. So I really want to tell all the things that I have prepared. And what happened was that actually I kept talking and talking and talking very fast. I didn't realize that at all. I just want to express what I have prepared for. I just kept saying. You know what happened? In the middle of the recording, they stopped the recording. And then the producer of the program came to me and said, "Venerable sir, this is not going to work. You are speaking so fast, and it's not good for you. It is also not good for the audience. No one will be able to follow because you speak so fast. We stop your recording, and we can record you again, but speak slowly." That was a big embarrassment for me at that time. But that was actually, it was a very good, a lesson for me. Even right now, even nowadays, I have a tendency to speak fast, but I remember that all the time. I try to remember it and purposefully, slow down myself. And, so he stopped the recording in the middle and came and directly told me that this is not good. This is not going to work. And it is not good for you, and no one will be able to, understand you. So that instruction was actually pointing out my weaknesses at that time, was actually showing me a hidden weakness that I should pay attention to, and then in order for me to grow. So it was an interesting memory that I had. So anyone else would like to share such an experience that happened in your life? Do you get admonishments? You found it very difficult at that time, but but help you so much later? Actually, today is the full moon day. That is the last full moon day within the month of rain retreat. And today is the day also in which monks gathered, and then we complete our rain retreat. And there's an important monastic activity we do today. Actually, that is to invite all the other monks to point out whatever mistake, whatever misbehavior that they have noticed in us. So this is an interesting day. Actually, I didn't think that this verse I will be discussing this verse on this particular day, but it's a really appropriate day. Just after this class, we are going to travel to Bhavana Society where Bhante Gunaratana is residing. So all the monks in this area will gather in that temple, and what we are going to do is we are doing this Uposatha Kamma, the monastic Vinaya Karma. In that Vinaya Karma, we do an important activity called pavattāraṃ. We invite other monks. If we have seen or if you have heard of any of my mistakes, or if you have any suspicion of any of my mistake or my misbehavior, please tell me. So even senior monks are inviting other monks to tell them whatever misbehavior, whatever faults that they have noticed during these 3 months. So it's an open invitation that we are doing to all the other monks to give me, tell me what you have seen or heard or even have suspicion, and I will make corrections and amendments. So it's an important day actually today, this full moon day, to discuss this verse. Any sharing or thoughts? If not, let me go to the other part of the program. Okay, I would like to, here I think it's also a good opportunity for us to discuss a little bit about friendships. So usually when we have friends, we think that our friendship is something that friends should always approve us, always praise us, always appreciate us. Actually, we like friends who always approve us, approve our decisions and approve our behavior. So we always like to be around those people, who always have good things to say about us. But actually, Buddha's advice is actually true friends do not always approve us. And so therefore, if we have a friend who will not approve your behavior, who will not approve your decisions, do not unfriend that person. These days we are all living in the social media, platforms. So usually, you will have friends who always approve you, give you likes. But if there's someone who will not approve you, not appreciate you, sometimes criticize you, we tend to unfriend them, right? But I think importantly, if someone is doing it with genuine kindness, we should not unfriend them. Buddha said, true friend will not always approve us. He point out our mistakes and help us grow. That's being a real good friend. So this doesn't mean judgmental, but it, based on acceptance and the concern for the friend. So if you want to become a good friend to others, if you really want to be a true friend to others, think about that. You can appreciate, definitely we can appreciate, goodness in others, but we should also help them to grow a little bit and maybe point out and give suggestions and help them to recognize their own weaknesses and grow beyond them. You shouldn't be judgmental. You shouldn't be always harsh, criticizing them, but actually kindly pointing out them. And we have a master, a Buddhist monk called Venerable Mudita. He lives in Michigan, Detroit, and all the other monks, he's a very senior monk. So all other monks know that he's the monk who will always directly tell you what is wrong with you. And so we say that getting a blame from him is like because he has this important practice that he will only blame is admonish the people that he really cares about. He will only blame the people he really loves. So if we get a blame from him, we know that he really cares for us. And if we don't blame you, that means he hasn't really, given you any attention or any care. So all the monks would like to get some blame from him. Not one way is to identify our own weaknesses, but also know that he actually cares for us. So I mean that if you really have a concern and care for others, we should also help them to grow beyond. So I think we have to have that understanding of the friendship. And so maybe this is a good time also for us to discuss important teachings we can find in the Niggayhavādiṃ Sutta, where Buddha talks about friendship. So in the Niggayhavādiṃ Sutta, and there are two categories of friends, good friends and bad friends. And so 4 good friends are given there. One is called helper, that means anukampa, upakaraka, helper. That means the different good friends have these four characteristics. Some may have dominant nature, being helpers, always help you. Always, if you need some help, he will have time for you. So that's helper. And if you can think about your good friends always helping you, giving you, supporting you, helpful. That's helper. But there's also another quality, or maybe another type of friend, is called enduring friend. That means he will not leave you, whether in the moments of crisis and also in the moment of happiness. And he will be with you whether you are going through happy moments or whether you are going through a crisis. He will not change. Samana sukha dukkha, like equal in both good times and bad times. That's another good friend. And the next one is called mentor. That means, this is the kind of friend that we are talking about today. Mentors always, be with us, but kindly, point out, some mistakes and help us to grow, and then always give some advice. He may not criticize us, in the middle of everyone, but he'll privately tell us, how we can do things better. So there will be a kind of friend like that. Sometimes we don't like such friends. What we want to know in this lesson is actually we should really treasure that kind of friend if that person is telling us with kindness and with some kind of knowledge and understanding. And the 4th one is compassionate friend, because anukampaka, that means, definitely be with us and have deep empathy for us, even though sometimes those friends do not live with us all the time. Although those friends we may not have opportunity to really practically help us, but they will always have empathy for us. They will always chant for us. So those are the good 4 friends. Of course, they are not. You can have friends can maybe belong to one of these categories. Every friend is a helper. Every friend is a mentor, compassionate. But some friends may have more dominant qualities, one quality than others. So therefore, in the Niggayhavādiṃ Sutta, Buddha said that among our friends, we can find these 4 good friends, recognize them, appreciate them, and be a friend in return to them. And we can think about ourselves and how I can be a helper to others, how I can be an enduring friend to others, not leaving them when they are going through difficult times, but actually being with them with both good and bad times, and how I can be a mentor to my friends, and how I can have more empathy towards my friends. But let's go to the bad friends. for 4 bad friends, and here Buddha talked about interesting names given here is called taker, and in Pali we say anya dattuhara. That means actually some friends always like to take things from us. They will find a way to take things from us. Either they will take some things, whatever our belongings, they will say, oh, I really like this, and then you will give it, or maybe you will take your time, and they don't necessarily give them back. They will take more than they will give you. So there can be bad friends like that. So just put this showing to lay people that we have to be mindful of that. Takers always try to take things from you, but not really giving many things to you. Taker. And the next one is called talker. That means, he will, in Pali we call vajjadassinaṃ. He will always help you, but only in his speech. And he will always, say, oh, I could have helped you if you told me. But if you tell them when you need help, they will find all kind of excuses not to help you. So they will always, help you only with his speech, and they will even make promises, oh, I will help you, when you need, but when you really need, they may not come. So like using the speech as a way to making promises, always talker, but not really doer in helping you. And the third one is called flatterer. Flatterer. This is, remember, in the good friends, here we have a mentor who will always, who will, appreciate us, but at the same time point out our mistakes and honestly tell us what is wrong with us. But the flatterer is the opposite of that, and he will always simply flatter us. Always all the good things to say about us. He will never say anything bad about us, always appreciate us, praise us so much. But of course, behind our back, he may, criticize us or blame us. But in front of us, he will always flatter. So there can be some friends. Sometimes flatterers can have very, good circle of friends, because we all like praise. We all like appreciation. We all like, people who say good things about us. Flatterer can have many friends. You may have a lot of flatterers too, but it's not very helpful, because of course, appreciating others' quality is a good thing, but having a flatterer as a friend is not helping us going forward. And there's another friend is called reckless companion. Actually, this is a friend that will always encourage you to do bad things, will accompany you to do all the kind of bad things. And the Pali term is called apaya sahaya. That means a supporter for you to go to hell. He will bring you to, places, to do all the bad things. He will encourage you. He will suggest you to go to do bad things. You can have friends who always invite you and encouraging you to do all the misbehavior and to break precepts. If you have a friend who will always invite you to break precepts and then support you to break precepts, he's a reckless companion, a friend who helps you to go to hell. Apaya sahaya. So, and you can think about yourself, am I a talker? Am I a taker? Am I a talker? Am I a flatterer? Or am I a reckless companion to others? And be mindful about that and try not to be so, but instead, being a good friend or being a helpful and enduring friend or mentor. Okay, so these are the key points I would like to share with you. We can go back to the original verse and now read, with more deeper meaning, like what Buddha is saying here. Should one find a person who points out faults and who reproves, one should follow such a wise, sagacious person as one would follow a guide to some hidden treasure. To one who follows such a wise person, it will be an advantage and not a disadvantage. Okay, so remember that, and this is showing who is a true Kalyana Mitra. Okay, So based on this verse, maybe I can, give you some tasks here. That if you have a question, please put in the chat box. But think about, what do you think about what would be the characteristic of a good spiritual friend? We call Kalyana Mitra. Think about that. What would be the characteristic of a good Kalyana Mitra? Okay, I think there's one question in the chat box. How do I know how to discern if the admonishment is coming from a worthy source? How I discern if the admonishment coming from a worthy source? If any admonishment, if it is really helping us to see something that we didn't see earlier, if it is helping us to, recognize some, weak points in us, doesn't matter what source it's coming from, you can take it. I think that maybe, that question help you to, maybe we can add, in addition to, real person, we can also use, suttas, we can also use, important books also different as a Kalyana Mitra. Okay, I'm getting some, characteristics of a Kalyana Mitra. Thank you. I would like to invite you, if to share with us. Have you ever had a person in your life that little bit harsh on you, but was really helpful? Of course, I remember my own master. In my case, when I was a small monk, he's very harsh on me. He's very strict, and he will punish you if you do mistakes, if you don't study well, if you do any misbehavior. He was very harsh on me. When I was a small monk, when I was slowly growing up, he changed. But I would like to try to remember, and if you think that that person could be your parent, could be a teacher, could be a grandparent, or could be someone else that little bit harsh on you, but later you realize that that was really helpful. Maybe as a tribute, this is a good time for you to share with us. Anyone? Okay, there's a question here. When we are sincere in correcting a friend, how do we convince the friend that we are really sincere in helping that friend? Okay. How we can convince the friend that we are really sincere in that we have deep concern. We have deep concern for the person. Okay. We should not expect that our friend will straight away recognize that we have a deep concern for the friend, and you should be ready for that. Our friends will take time to recognize that actually we are genuinely telling those things. We have a deep concern for them. It will take some time for them to understand. The only way is to actually be consistent. If you're consistent in your helping or guiding or instruction, and they will take time to look into that. One other way to convince them you really care for them and love for them. So, and you do other help to them also. You're not only always pointing out their mistakes, you're also helping them in other ways, showing your concern from other ways. When you come to that weakness, that when you come to that misbehavior or bad habit, you are very strict. you want them to change. But in other times, in other occasions, you help that person. So you show your kindness from other ways. But when it comes to that bad habit or weakness, you always give the instruction. So then the friend will understand that you are really compassionate for that person. Okay, Sharon is sharing her mom about her mom. Okay. Thank you, Brother Billy Tang. You have a nice definition of friends. F stands for fellowship, R stands for reassurances, I stands for inspiration, E stands for empathy, N stands for non-judgment, D stands for development or mentorship, and S stands for sharing. Okay, that's a nice way of putting that. I think it include when you go to Buddha's advice on good friends and bad friends, I think all these things are covered. Thank you, Brother Billy. Okay, any other last questions or comments? Okay, so be ready to get criticism. That's not a bad thing. Maybe whenever you get a criticism, if someone is pointing out our mistakes, we may feel some discomfort. Notice that next time if someone is criticizing, giving bad feedback, or some kind of pointing our weaknesses, there'll be some kind of discomfort occurring in our heart. Observe that. That's very good. Very good that to observe that discomfort, little bit uneasiness that is arising in us. So recognize it. Remember that is coming from our pride or mana and our stubbornness, or that's like coming from the ego. So notice that, recognize it, and it's not bad, but just recognize it and develop the mindfulness and understanding that yes, that unwillingness to hear this is coming from my ego that is preventing us for me to grow. Okay, that's okay. You feel it, you go through that uneasiness and discomfort, but you take the point seriously. And sometimes some people are not very skillful in pointing out our mistakes. They'll be very harsh. But even that's okay. You don't worry about the tone, and think about, is there anything that I can learn, even from a person who's not friendly with us? Is there anything that I can learn, and use them as treasures? You can actually and grow. So like Venerable Radha, who will always was in his case he needed special training, but I think noticing or detecting our own uneasiness and not to become victims to them, and then paying our attention to, is there anything that I can learn and grow, that will help us a lot. So be ready to find out hidden treasures. Actually, hidden weakness. When you find a hidden weakness, you can work to overcome that, and what you discover after that is a very beautiful treasure. That means our whole kusala, our whole kusala qualities. When you remove your defilements, what is left there is kusala qualities, wholesome qualities. Is like sat bojjanga, like 7 factors of enlightenment, and all other wholesome qualities. Those qualities are kind of hidden and covered. So we need to remove all our defilements to take that beauty out. So let's use all the criticism, all the admonishments, all the instructions to recognize our weaknesses and go about them and bring out our goodness. Okay. I think that's that's what I have to share with you today, and I look forward to meet you again next Thursday.